wearing a wide-brimmed hat. He's been there 11 minutes. I know, because my ring is counting. Room 214, Company Lodging, Creston, Iowa. The kind of room where the heater cycles on the timer nobody has adjusted since the building changed hands. I am on my back with my right arm across my stomach, which is how I fell asleep. And I have been trying for 11 minutes to close my hand. Not to reach for anything, just to close it. 4 fingers to a palm. My eyes work. That is what the pamphlets get right. My eyes work perfectly. And the room is dark enough that I should not be able to see him at all. And I can see the weave of the coat, and the hat band, and the flat place under the brim where a face is supposed to start. The heater cycles off. In the quiet after it, the floor takes weight near the foot of the bed. Not a step, weight settling onto a board. The way a floor answers a person who has already been standing on it a while. And the mattress moves. I feel it through my shoulder blades. A slow tilt toward the near edge, and then back. I look down the length of my own body, past the flat of my chest and the ridge of my hip, to where my right arm has been lying across my stomach for 11 minutes. It is not there. It is at my side, palm up, fingers open, and on my index finger, the ring gives one soft tick against the bone, the way it does when it decides you have started moving. Her name is Nora Vance. She has driven freight trains for 22 years. She bought the ring to prove that she sleeps normally. I am not a person who believes in things. I run a locomotive. My whole job is that the physical world is consistent. Steel expands. Brake pipe pressure drops from the head end back. A loaded coal train needs 1.5 miles of tangent track to stop. And it does not care what you were hoping for. 22 years of that gets into you. So when the letter came, my first reaction was paperwork irritation. The carrier was standing up a screening program for safety-sensitive employees. Sleep disorders. Everyone in engine service, everyone in train service, everyone who touches a control. They had a form, and the form had questions on it about how likely you were to doze off reading, watching television, sitting quietly after lunch. I answered them honestly, which was my mistake. I scored high enough to get referred, a sleep study at an accredited lab within 90 days, or I came off the board. Off the board means off the payroll. It means 22 years of seniority, sitting still while men with 11 years bid my jobs. There is no version of my life where I do not pass this. So, 90 days. The schedule is what does it. People outside the industry never understand that. I am not on shifts. I am on call. The crew caller phones me 2 hours before I am needed, and I go, and it might be 4 in the morning, and it might be 4 in the afternoon, and the trip is 12 hours to the away terminal, and then I sleep in company lodging until they call me for a train going back. You do not have a bedtime, you have a phone. 22 years of that, and every single person I work with sleeps badly. That is not a diagnosis, that is the job. That was my whole theory, and it held up fine for about 6 weeks. The first time it happened, I was in room 214. It has always been room 214. It is a big building. It was just always that room. I came out of sleep and I could not move. And there was a shape in the corner by the closet. And I lay there for what felt like a long time, and then it stopped. And I could move. I got up and turned on the light. And there was a chair with my vest on it. That is exactly what it was. A chair with my vest on it, and a brain waking up wrong. And I laughed because that is genuinely funny at 4 in the morning when your heart is going. Except my heart was not going. I noticed it standing there with my hand on the light switch. I felt like something had reached into my chest and taken hold of me. And underneath that, nothing. No pounding, no thin, fast pulse in the throat. I put 2 fingers under my jaw the way you do. And I counted, and that was slow. I have thought about that more than the shape in the corner. Second time was 11 days later. Same room, and this time the shape was not the chair, because I had moved the chair. I moved it against the door on purpose. Like an idiot, like a person in a story. Third time, I stopped counting the times. When it happens, it is always a man, and he is always wearing a hat. I have never once in my life thought about a man in a hat. My father wore a ball cap. Nobody I know wears a hat. It is not a thing my brain has any reason to be reaching for. And it does not change. And it is not vague. It is a wide brim and a low crown and a coat that goes past the knee. And it has a specific weight to it, the way real cloth has weight. I looked it up eventually. I am not going to pretend I did not. What I found was thousands of people describing the same coat. I did not tell the doctor about that part. I told my sister once on the phone, and she was quiet in a way I did not like, and I have not brought it up again. What I did instead was buy a ring. It was $199. It sits on the index finger and it reads your pulse and your temperature and your movement. And every morning it draws you a little chart of your night. And it tells you a number out of 100. I did not buy it to find anything. bought it because I was going into that lab in 6 weeks with a form that said I was a risk, and I wanted 6 weeks of my own data that said otherwise. I wanted to walk in with a printout. For 19 days, it gave me exactly what I wanted. 70s and low 80s. Sleep efficiency in the 90s. On the 20th day, I opened it in the lodging kitchen with a paper cup of coffee in my other hand. And the chart had a block in it I had not seen before. A long, pale band starting at 2:07 in the morning, ending at 2:48. 41 minutes. The label on it said, "Awake." Under that, in the movement row, a solid bar. Not the little scratches you get from rolling over. A solid bar. The way it looks when I am walking the length of a train. And in the heart rate row, across that whole band, a flat line at 51 beats a minute. 51 is my resting rate lying down. That is the number I make when I am asleep and dreaming about nothing. So the ring was telling me that between 2:07 and 2:48 in the morning, I had been awake, upright, and moving continuously for 41 minutes, and that my body had been completely at rest the entire time. I stood in that kitchen and I did the only thing I could think of, which was try to remember 2:07. I could not. I could remember lying on my back with my arm across my stomach and not being able to close my hand. The lab was in a low brick building on a hospital campus 2 hours east, on the side where the parking is free. I had built it up in my head as a place that would be adversarial. It was not. Nobody believes me about that. Everyone there was good at their job, and everyone there was kind to me. The intake nurse asked what I did for a living, and when I told her, she said her uncle had been a carman in Galesburg for 30 years. And we talked about that for 4 minutes. And then she took my blood pressure. The technologist's name was Priya. She had been doing this 11 years, and she wired me like a person who could do it in the dark. Which she can, because she does. There are 22 wires, and I can still name every one of them. She measures your head with a soft tape and marks it in wax pencil. Then the electrodes go on with a gritty paste that smells like nothing at all. 6 on the scalp, 2 behind the ears, 2 beside the eyes, 2 on the jaw. Then a cannula under the nose to read airflow. A thermistor beside it. 2 belts, 1 at the chest and 1 at the belly, to read the effort of breathing. A pulse oximeter clipped to a finger. Leads at both shins for the legs. By the end of it, I had 22 wires coming off me, gathered into a bundle behind my neck like a ponytail, plugged into a box on the headboard. "You'll sleep worse than usual," Priya said. "Everybody does. We build that in." I asked her if she watched. She said she watched the signal. She said the room had no camera in it, that they had gone to belt sensors and lead redundancy years ago. And then if I sat up, she would know it from the leads before she would have known it from looking. That was supposed to be reassuring. Room 3, queen bed, a nightstand, a chair, a window with a blackout blind, and a door that does not lock because it is a medical space. I remember thinking, good, not room 214, new room. Whatever this is, it is in Creston, and I am not in Creston. I want to tell you, I lay awake for hours. I did not. I went out fast. The way you do when you've been running on a phone schedule for 2 decades, and someone finally puts you in a dark room and tells you that sleeping is your assignment. I woke at some point and could not move. The blind had a seam of parking lot light down one side of it, and the chair was against the far wall where Priya had put it, and there was no shape in the corner. And I lay there and I thought, with total clarity, the way you think when nothing else is available to you. Good. Get it. It is on you now. There are 22 wires on my head. Get it. I could hear the paste settling. I could hear the wire bundle shift behind my neck when my chest rose. I could hear, under everything, the specific hum of a building that has its own generator. Then the door came off the latch. It did not open. There is a difference. A door that is resting closed against a strike plate makes a small sound when the pressure on it changes. A kind of soft knock backward into its own frame. That sound. And the light from the hall did not come in, because the hall light does not come on unless somebody is in the hall, and the sensor never tripped. Something came in over the sill without changing the light. I could not turn my head. People hear paralysis and they think stiff. It is not stiff. There is no resistance to push against. The instruction leaves and there is nothing at the other end of it. Your body is not fighting you. Your body is simply not yours at the moment. And it is very quiet, and it is very close, and you are inside it. I heard the chair take weight. 6 electrodes pasted to my scalp, and 22 wires running to a box on the headboard. And I cannot lift my head 3 inches to look at the chair. The last thing I remember is the wire bundle behind my neck going slack. The way it goes when the thing it is attached to has moved closer to the box. There is a version of this story where the machine sees nothing, and Nora Vance goes home, and the wrongness stays inside her where nobody can check it. That version would have been kinder. The machine saw everything. It was scored by a human being. It was signed and dated and filed. The follow-up was 15 days later with a sleep physician named Marchetti. He had my study on 2 monitors, and he turned the left one toward me, which I appreciated because most people do not. The news was good in the sense the railroad cared about. I have obstructive sleep apnea, moderate, 22 events an hour. He explained the scale the way you explain something you have explained 8,000 times. That under 5 is normal, 5 to 15 is mild, 15 to 30 is moderate, over 30 is severe. He said mine was very treatable, a machine and a mask, and I would likely feel better in a week than I had felt in 5 years. Then, and I remember the exact phrasing, "This explains what you've been experiencing." And it did. It explained the daytime fog. It explained why I was scoring high on their form. It even explained the paralysis, sort of. Because fragmented sleep pushes you in and out of the stage where your body is switched off. And if you surface in the middle of that stage, you get exactly what I had been getting, right down to the presence in the room. He had a term for it. He said it very gently. He said the brain, waking up in a body that is not switched on yet, will sometimes assign that to an intruder because a threat is the only explanation it has on hand for why it cannot move. I liked him. I want that on the record. Then I asked about the ring. I had brought the print out. 19 ordinary nights, and one that was not. And I put it on his desk, and I asked him what the 41 minutes were. He said, consumer devices are not diagnostic. He was not dismissive about it. He said they infer movement from an accelerometer on one finger, and they infer wake from that plus pulse variability, and that a hand hanging off a bed frame in a room with a heater cycling can produce a movement signature that looks like walking. I said the night in question was the 14th. I said, that is not one of the nights I was here. And then I asked him to look at the night I was there. He scrawled, there's a chart they draw of your night called a hypnogram. It is a stepped line. Deep sleep at the bottom, light sleep above it, dream sleep above that, and awake at the top. All night it goes down and up in a slow staircase, and it is genuinely beautiful. And you can see your whole night in it in one glance. At 2:07 in the morning, my line went to the top. It stayed at the top, dead flat, until 2:48, 41 minutes, 2:07. The same minute as the night in Creston, in a different state, 5 weeks later, in a bed I had never slept in before. I did not say that out loud. I have thought about very little else since. He said, that's an arousal. That's normal, and that's what your apnea does. I said, an arousal is a few seconds. You told me that an hour ago. He looked at it for a while. Then he opened the channels underneath, which is the actual raw signal, all 16 rows of it. And we went down the page together. Airflow, present, regular, not the sawtooth of an apnea event. Just a person breathing evenly. Chest belt and belly belt. In phase. Shallow. Regular. Oxygen saturation. 96%. Flat. Heart rate. 51. Leg leads. Nothing. Eye channels. Nothing. Not the sweep of dreaming, not the flicker of a person looking around a room. Nothing. Brain channels. Awake. Unambiguously, textbook awake. The fast, low pattern you make sitting up reading a book. And the body position channel, which is a little sensor on the chest belt that knows which way you are facing, said the same thing for the entire 41 minutes. Upright. I asked him what upright meant. He said it means the sensor's axis was vertical. He said it means sitting or standing. Upright. 16 channels agreed with each other. Every one of them for 41 minutes. I was awake, breathing calmly, not dreaming, not moving my eyes, not moving my legs, at a resting heart rate, vertical, and the wires were still on my head because the impedance never spiked. Because if I had stood up and walked across that room with 22 leads on me, the signal in a slide dash in under 2 seconds. And it did not go to garbage. It stayed clean. Whatever was vertical in that room for 41 minutes was clean enough to be scored. Dr. Marchetti was quiet for a while. He is not a coward, and he did not pretend. He said, "I don't have an explanation for the position channel." Then he scrolled to the top of the report, to the technologist note, the free text field where the person who sat there all night writes down what they saw. Priya had written one line, 207 to 248, PT vertical, per position channel, no corroborating movement, no door event, flagged. And under that, in a different field, in the box where somebody with more authority than her decides what a flag becomes, someone had entered a code and a phrase. The phrase was artifact, presumed lead displacement. The code closes the flag. Once it is closed, the study is scoreable. The report is signable, and the report is what goes to the carrier. I asked what happens to Priya's note. He said it stays in the file. I said, "Does anybody read it?" He said, "You did. The carrier sent 61 of us through that lab." I did not go looking. I have thought about whether I went looking because it matters to me, and I did not. What happened is that the carrier, being a carrier, turned a medical program into a compliance program. And a compliance program means meetings. They put us in a room at the Union Hall in Galesburg once a month. 12 of us, coffee, and a health educator from the insurer, and a slide deck about mask fit and humidifier settings and how how to keep the tubing from getting cold. You have never seen a group of people less interested in a slide deck. So we talked. That is what a room like that is for. 12 engineers and conductors sitting in folding chairs, talking about the machine, and who had gotten used to it, and who had thrown it in a closet. And after the third meeting, a man named Dewey Octree said the thing that took the floor out from under the room. Dewey is retired. He was not there as an employee. He came because his brother-in-law brought him, and because he had, in a canvas grocery bag on his lap, 4 years of printouts. He said, "Anybody else got a hole in theirs?" Nobody answered, and then 2 people answered at once. By the end of that meeting, there were 4 of us. Me, Dewey, a woman named Rayner who runs the local out of Cicero, and a road foreman I am not going to name because he still has a job and I would like him to keep it. 4 studies, 4 different nights spread across 4 years. Same lab, same room 3. Every one of us had a flat band at the top of the hypnogram. Position channel, vertical, heart rate at rest, and a technologist's note that got closed as artifact. Dewey's was the longest, 53 minutes. Rainier's was 47. The road foreman's was 44. Mine was 41. We laid them out on a folding table under a fluorescent light, and we stood around them the way you stand around a track chart when there has been an incident, which is quiet and shoulder to shoulder, and nobody putting a word to it yet. It was Rayner who saw it first, and what she said was, "We're all engine service." 61 people went through that lab. Carmen, signal maintainers, dispatchers, track inspectors, clerks with safety-sensitive designations. 4 of us had the hole in the night. 4 of us sit alone in the dark at the front of 8,000 tons and put one hand on a control. I had been wrong about the whole thing, and I had been wrong in a specific way that I am ashamed of, because it is the vain way. I had been assuming this was happening to me, that there was something about my apnea, or my schedule, or my divorce, or my particular unlucky brain. It is not interested in me. It has never been interested in me. It is interested in what I do for a living. Dewey put it in the language of the job, because that is the only language any of us have, he said. It's qualifying. On the railroad, before you are allowed to run a territory, you qualify on it, you ride it. Somebody who knows it sits with you, and you make the trip enough times that you know where the curves are and where the signal is hiding behind the trees, and how the grade feels under a loaded train at 3 a.m. Then they cut you loose and you go alone. That is what the 41 minutes are. Somebody is qualifying, not on the territory, on the body. It gets a period of time in which the operator cannot object. And in that period, it practices being vertical and breathing and being calm. And it does not have to hurry because it has all night and a person who will not remember. Dewey's 4 years of printouts are the ugliest thing I have ever looked at, and there is nothing on them. And that is what makes them ugly. There is nothing on them but a man breathing evenly at 50 beats a minute while standing up in a dark room in a building attached to a hospital. I asked him why he retired. He said he did not retire. He was pulled from service after an event on the North End. The carrier did not discipline him, and the union did not have to fight it because the download exonerated him. The event recorder showed his train handling was clean the entire trip. His own hand had done everything right. I asked him how he knew that. He said, "I was watching it." I went back to work. A reasonable person does something else here. I have run the alternatives, report it, and I am pulled from service pending psychiatric evaluation. And I have never seen anybody come back from that with their seniority. And it puts me back in a lab, in a room, in a bed, wired for a longer stretch than 41 minutes. Say nothing, and I keep the paycheck, and I keep the seniority, and I keep going out at 2 a.m. by myself. I chose the second one. I am not going to dress that up. The machine works, by the way, the mask. I sleep well now for the first time since my 30s, and the paralysis has almost entirely stopped. And I want you to sit with that because it is the worst part. It stopped needing the bed. 3 weeks ago, I was on a loaded manifest, eastbound, 2nd District, about 40 miles out of the away terminal, 2:12 in the morning, clear signals, 49 miles an hour, which is track speed for that stretch. There is a device in every locomotive cab called an alerter. It is in the federal regulations. It has been for decades. What it does is watch for evidence that the engineer is still operating. And if it does not see any activity for a set period, it starts a warning. And if you do not answer that warning by hand, it applies the brakes and stops the train. That is the whole design. It exists to answer one question: is anybody still there? I was sitting with both feet flat on the floor and both hands in my lap, which is what you do on a long tangent when the train is behaving. And the alerter light came up on the console, and my right hand came up off my lap and reset it. I watched it go. I watched my own arm rotate at the shoulder and my hand travel about 14 inches, and my thumb find the button without hunting for it, and press it, and come back down to my lap, palm up, fingers open. I was completely awake. My eyes were working. I had not made a decision. My heart rate, according to the ring, was 53. I did not stop the train. I want to tell you, I stopped the train. There is a place 40 miles from anywhere, on a clear night, where you have every right to make an emergency application and sit in the dark until the sun comes up. And I did not do it because I could not think of what I would put in the report. I ran it in, I tied it down, I signed off. I walked to the lodging with the sun not up yet, and I stood in room 214 with my hand on the light switch, and I checked the ring. Because at this point, the ring is the only witness I have that is not me. It had logged a period of activity, 2:07 to 2:35. I have been going back through the log every morning since. There is a pattern in it, and once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. 41 minutes at the lab in April, 37 in May, 34 in June, 31, and then the one in the cab, which was 28. It is not getting worse. It is getting better at it. It needs less time now. It does it awake. It does it at 49 miles an hour. It does it with a hand that has run this territory for 22 years and knows where everything is without looking. I sleep with my right arm outside the blanket now. Not for any reason that would help. Not so I can grab it, because I cannot grab it, and that is the entire problem. I do it so that when I surface at 2 in the morning and cannot move, the first thing in my field of vision is my own hand, and I can see whether it is where I left it. You are, in all likelihood, listening to this, lying down. And that is when most people listen. In the dark, in bed, with one arm outside the blanket because the room is warm. About 1 person in 13 will have at least one episode of sleep paralysis in their lifetime. That figure comes from a review of the research literature across dozens of studies and populations. It is not rare. It is not a disease of the unlucky. It is a normal failure of a switch that every human being has. In 2018, the National Transportation Safety Board finished its report on a commuter train that failed to stop at a terminal and struck a wall. One person standing on the platform was killed. The board determined the probable cause was the engineer's fatigue, resulting from undiagnosed severe obstructive sleep apnea. It found the railroad had not followed its own screening guidance and had not referred at-risk employees for testing. It found the federal regulator did not require that screening at all. And it found there was no device and no system in place that could have stopped the train before it reached the wall. One of those findings is about a man who did not know he was sick. The other 3 are about the systems they were supposed to find out. The board's own report says it does not assign fault or blame. Some railroads went looking after that, voluntarily. That is where the record ends and Nora Vance begins. 61 people at a time in a low brick building with free parking, in a room with no camera in it because a camera would have told them less than the sensors did. Nora Vance still holds her seniority. She still takes the call. Her mask fits, her numbers are good, and she is, by every measure her carrier has, a healthy and compliant employee. Her file says the 41 minutes were an artifact. Somewhere in that file, in a field nobody is required to read, a technologist wrote down what she actually saw. Check your hand. This is urban dread. The city never sleeps.